The $12 million secret, my family's Thanksgiving. Meltdown. Hey, everyone. Before we dive into today's story, I need a quick favor. We've noticed a dip in channel engagement, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us out. It's fast, free, and lets us keep bringing you amazing content. Your support means the world, so please help us keep this channel growing. Thanks a bunch. And let's get into it. I'm Sarah, I'm 38, and I need to get something off my chest. I'm using a throwaway account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some specifics to protect identities. You know those families where one kid can do no wrong, and the other feels invisible? Yeah, that's been my life. The invisible wall, everything was normal until I was 8. I was an only child, and my parents, while not super affectionate, were present. My mom helped with homework, and my dad would occasionally take me fishing. We weren't the Bradys, but we were okay. Then came the night that changed everything. My Aunt Kelly showed up at 2 a.m. telling me to pack a bag because Mom was in the hospital. My sister Rachel was on her way, but something was wrong. She wasn't due for 2 more months. The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits and hushed conversations. Rachel was tiny, like a baby doll, but with all these tubes. I wasn't allowed to touch her or get too close. That's when I first felt it, an invisible wall forming between me and the rest of my family. When Rachel finally came home, our house became a sterilized bubble. Mom became obsessed with germs, industrial-strength disinfectant, hand sanitizer in every room, constant cleaning. The harsh smell of bleach still bothers me. But here's what really messed me up. If I showed the slightest sign of illness, I was sent away. Every time. Sneeze once, pack your bags, a mild cough, off to Grandma Marie's or Aunt Kelly's. At first, I thought it was fun. Grandma Marie made cookies, and Aunt Kelly had an awesome Nancy Drew collection. But kids aren't stupid. After a while, you realize you're not going on adventures. You're being treated like a threat, like your very existence could harm your beloved sister. I tried everything to get their attention in a healthier way. I got straight A's, but Mom barely looked up from Rachel's doctor's appointment calendar. I won first prize at the science fair with a renewable energy project, and Dad just asked if I could store the display board in the garage because Rachel was allergic to cardboard dust. Is that even a thing? The real kicker came when I was 12. I'd practiced for months for the school talent show, teaching myself Bridge Over Troubled Water on the piano. I know, a little dramatic. The night of the show, Rachel had a 99.1-degree fever. Guess who had no one in the audience? Meanwhile, 2 weeks later, the entire family, including both sets of grandparents, attended Rachel's 15-minute flute recital where she butchered hot cross buns. Rachel quickly learned how to use the system. By age 7, she was past any real health issues, but that didn't stop her. Headache? Stay home from school, feeling tired? Guess who had to do her chores? Worried about a test? Mom would literally call the school to extend the deadline. I started spending more and more time in my room, buried in books about art history and antiques. Funny how life works out. My room became my sanctuary, mostly because Rachel claimed. She was allergic to my lavender air freshener, so it was the only place she wouldn't go. And you know what's truly messed up? When she faked being sick, part of me felt grateful. At least I'd get sent to Grandma Marie's, where someone would ask about my day or be interested in what I was doing. Grandma was the one who sparked my interest in vintage jewelry. She had an amazing collection of costume pieces she'd let me organize and catalog. I guess I should have seen it as prophetic. The worst part wasn't even the clear favoritism. It was how they rewrote history to justify their actions. Rachel just needs more attention because she had such a rough start. Sarah's always been so independent. Sarah understands her sister has special needs. No, I didn't understand. I was a child who didn't understand why having a good immune system made me less deserving of love. Looking back, I can see how those years shaped me. The constant message that I was somehow unsafe or inconvenient doesn't just go away. But hey, at least it taught me to be self-sufficient. When no one checks your homework or celebrates your triumphs, you quickly learn to be your own cheerleader. The Escape High School. Most people either loved or hated it. Me? I saw it as a ticket. Out. While Rachel was building her drama empire in middle school, I was laying the groundwork for my own escape. And let me tell you, nothing inspires you to achieve more than knowing no one will do it for you. Remember how I spent hours sorting Grandma Marie's jewelry collection? That taught me a valuable lesson. The importance of systematic organization and attention to detail. In high school, I approached everything with the same mindset. My desk looked like something out of an organization magazine. Color-coded notes, meticulously planned study schedules, everything in its place. Rachel teased me about it, calling me Rain Man. Real nice, sis. But here's the thing about being invisible. No one's watching your failures or your successes, so you can do whatever the heck you want. I joined every club that didn't interfere with my part-time job at Carson's Diner. Shout out to Carol, the owner, for remembering my birthday when my own parents forgot. Debate team? Check. National Honor Society president? Check. Editor-in-chief of the school newspaper? Check. The debate team was where I truly found my voice. There's something so satisfying about dismantling someone's argument while maintaining perfect composure. It also taught me how to negotiate, which I didn't realize at the time but would come in handy later. I won states twice. My parents couldn't make either competition because Rachel had major soccer games. She was on the C team. She didn't even play. Junior year was when things really got interesting. I took the SAT and got a perfect score. Not, oh, pretty good, perfect. I mean perfect, perfect. A 1600. You know how many people get that? Less than 1%. I remember staring at the results screen for almost 20 minutes, convinced it was a mistake. I rushed home to tell my parents. I know, stupid. Mom was in the kitchen helping Rachel with her English homework. The conversation went something like this. Me. Mom, look! I got a perfect SAT score. Mom. That's nice, honey, but can you keep it down? Rachel's trying to concentrate. She has a big test tomorrow. Rachel. Yeah, you're right. Some of us actually have to study, Miss Perfect. Mom. Rachel, sweetie, don't worry. You're just a different kind of learner. I still have the hard copy of those SAT results somewhere. Never got pinned on the fridge. But Rachel's C+ in English? That baby got primo refrigerator real estate complete with a "We're so proud of you" magnet.college applications. The whole process was interesting. I applied to 15 schools without telling anyone. I wrote all my own essays, got my own recommendations, and handled all the financial aid paperwork myself. My guidance counselor, Mr. Chen, was the true MVP. My parents were too busy to help me with the FAFSA, so I stayed late after school. Then, the acceptances started rolling in. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan. And each one came with a scholarship offer. I kept them all in a locked box under my bed, knowing what would happen if Rachel found out. Their focus would suddenly shift entirely to her. But if Sarah goes to Harvard, I'll be all alone, or some nonsense like that. The day I got my full ride offer from UMich, Rachel joined JV cheerleading. Guess which one was celebrated with a family feast? Hint, I had microwave mac and cheese in my room while they went to Olive Garden. But you know what? That scholarship was my golden ticket. Tuition, room, board, even a book allowance, all covered. I could finally leave that house where I was either invisible or inconvenient. The day I got my acceptance package, I went to my favorite spot in the local library, a fourth-floor window seat overlooking the park, and cried for an hour. Not sad tears, tears of relief. When I told my parents at dinner that I was going to UMich, they were not ecstatic. Mom. Michigan? But that's so far? What if Rachel needs you? Dad. I hope you're not expecting us to help with expenses. Rachel's. Cheerleading competitions are very costly. Rachel crying. Oh my God! Finally, can I have your room? I need space for my TikTok videos. The summer before college, I worked double shifts at Carson's Diner to save money. Carol, bless her heart, always gave me extra tips and made sure I took home leftover pie. She also taught me a vital skill, how to spot genuine people in a world full of fakes. Honey, she'd tell me, in diners and in life, the ones making the most noise usually have the least to say. Move-in day at UMich. My parents couldn't make it because, surprise, Rachel had a cheerleading competition. Aunt Kelly drove me instead, helped me set up my dorm room, and handed me a $500 envelope. Your Grandma Marie wanted you to have this, she told me. She's so proud of you. I later learned Grandma had been saving that money from her Social Security checks for months. That first night in my dorm room, I promised myself I was going to build such an amazing life that being overlooked would be unimaginable. Not for revenge, not to prove anything to my family, but for the 8-year-old girl who got sent to Grandma's for sneezing. The break through college flew by in a blur of all-nighters, instant ramen, and glorious independence. I graduated summa cum laude from the University of Michigan. Not that my parents noticed. They were too busy helping Rachel transfer to her third college in 2 years. But this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. I got an entry-level job at Everett & Phillips, auction house in Detroit. I won't use the real name, but if you're in the business, you probably know who I'm talking about. A true high-end establishment, old money clients, that kind of deal. I started in their estate sales department, documenting belongings of wealthy individuals after their deaths. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills. My first few months were pretty standard, logging countless china sets, categorizing vintage furniture, and so on. Then came the Kingston estate. Mrs. Kingston was an elderly widow who had passed away with no children, leaving behind what everyone assumed was a massive collection of costume jewelry, rooms full of the stuff. This is where all those hours at Grandma Marie's came in handy. I'm sifting through this pile of jewelry when something catches my eye. It's an Art Deco brooch. Nothing flashy, but something about it felt different. The weight was off for costume jewelry. The clasp mechanism was far too intricate for a replica. I think I spent my entire lunch break that day researching old jewelry, markers and signatures. I ended up staying late to use the company's membership to several antique jewelry databases. The more I looked, the more certain I became. This wasn't costume jewelry. It was the real deal. The problem? I was the new kid. No one would believe me if I claimed we had a potential treasure on our hands. So I did what the debate team taught me. I meticulously built my case. I spent 2 weeks during lunch breaks and evenings learning everything I could about Art Deco jewelry authentication. I even used some of my pathetic savings to pay for an online gemology course. Finally, I mustered the courage to approach my boss, Mr. Harrison. I brought the whole presentation, comparative images, historical documentation, the works. The conversation went something like this. Me. Sir, I think we might have something significant in the Kingston collection. Harrison, barely looking up from his phone. Sarah, we've already cataloged those as costume pieces. You're mistaken. Me. I know. But look at these maker marks. They match perfectly with Cartier's 1925 signatures. Harrison, finally paying attention. Where did you learn all of this? Me. I, did some research. Long story short, the costume brooch sold for $47,000 at auction. Turns out it was part of a limited collection made for some European royalty in the 1920s. But here's the real kicker. Harrison started to trust me after that. He began giving me other pieces to authenticate. Suddenly, my pointless hobby of sorting antique jewels had real meaning. I threw myself into learning everything I could about vintage jewelry. I took every online course I could afford. I spent weekends at estate sales, studying pieces. I even started a little notebook to document different authentication methods. My apartment looked like a jewelry scholar's fever dream, with walls covered in printouts of vintage hallmarks and certification guidelines. The auction house started seeing results. I was identifying important pieces others had missed, building connections with collectors and understanding the market. My commission checks got bigger. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was saving money. My family? Still remarkably uninterested. At Sunday dinners, which I still went to like a fool, the conversation went like this. Mom: Sarah's still at that antique shop, right? Me: auction house, actually, and yes, I just authenticated a rare Tiffany piece. Rachel interrupting. Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you guys have to see this charm bracelet I got at the mall. But I didn't care anymore. For once in my life, I had found something entirely mine, something I was actually good at, something completely unrelated to being Rachel's sister. Going solo, then came the Rothschild collection. This was about 2 years into my time at the auction house. A huge estate, old money family, lots of buzz in the industry. I was part of the team cataloging their jewelry, and that's when I saw it. A fairly common Art Nouveau piece that everyone else had overlooked. I spent 3 days researching it, barely sleeping. It turned out to be a piece from a famous French jeweler's private collection, thought to have been lost during World War II. When it sold at auction for $2.38 million, Harrison called me into his office. I thought I was getting a promotion. Instead, he said something that completely changed everything. Sarah, you're wasting your talent here. You should be running your own authentication business. Initially, I shrugged it off. Me? Start a business? With what money? But the idea took root. I started doing small freelance authentication projects on the side. Word spread that I had an incredible eye. Private collectors started contacting me directly. One night, I was sitting in my tiny apartment, surrounded by jewelry manuals and authentication tools I'd slowly acquired, when I had an epiphany. This was something I could actually do. I could build something on my own. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I took out a huge loan against my car. I emptied my savings account. I rented a small office space in a less desirable part of town. People thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. I transformed a storage room above a Chinese restaurant, about the size of a college dorm room. The rent was low because it always smelled like Kung Pao chicken, and the Wi-Fi only worked if you sat in the corner by the window. But it was mine. The first few months were interesting. And by interesting, I mean terrifying. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. in cold sweats, calculating how many months until my savings ran out. Loan payments felt like a noose around my neck. My office furniture consisted of a card table I bought from Goodwill and a chair I literally found on the curb. Don't worry, it was thoroughly cleaned. But in the world of high-end jewelry, reputation and connections are everything, and my time at the auction house had given me both. I started small, doing authentication work for local antique dealers. My fees were lower than the bigger firms, but my attention to detail was getting noticed. Word spread. 6 months later, a turning point. A dealer I'd worked with at the auction house asked about a collection of Victorian-era brooches. The owner wanted verification before selling. It turned out to be a huge collection, with pieces from 3 generations of families. I worked on it for 2 straight weeks, barely sleeping, documenting everything. I found 2 incredibly rare pieces that had been misidentified as later replicas. The owner was so thrilled with my detailed analysis that she not only paid my fee but also gave me a 10% commission when the pieces sold. That commission? $86,000. More money than I'd earned in the previous 2 years combined. Suddenly, my phone started ringing a lot. Private collectors heard about my knack for finding missed pieces. Estate lawyers sought advice on inherited jewelry. Even my old auction house started sending me authentication work. I'm pretty sure Harrison was secretly helping spread the word. Thanks, boss. The double life. By year 2, I'd hired my first employee, Jenny, a fresh gemology grad who reminded me too much of myself at that age. Super smart, but overlooked because she was quiet. She's now my head of authentication and worth. Her weight in gold. The company grew faster than I could have imagined. We moved to a proper office downtown. Goodbye, Kung Pao chicken smell. I built a team of specialists. I earned a reputation for finding hidden gems. You wouldn't believe how many significant historical jewelry pieces are misidentified as costume jewelry in people's attics. However, success came with its own set of challenges. The bigger we got, the harder it was to keep it a secret from my family. They still thought I worked in an antique shop. Rachel would make these sarcastic comments during family dinners. Rachel, Sarah, I have some old jewelry I was going to donate to Goodwill. Maybe your little shop would want it. Me, having just authenticated a $1.2 million Fabergé piece that morning. Sure, I'll take a look. Mom continued to introduce me to everyone. This is my other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something. Meanwhile, I was being quoted in Forbes, luckily under my company name, and we'd just built our third office. The strange thing about it was that keeping the secret became almost enjoyable, like this private joke with myself. I'd sit at Sunday dinner in my Target discount outfit, really Chanel, listening to Rachel talk about her entry-level marketing job, knowing I'd just closed a deal for more than her annual income. I even started playing little games with myself, like wearing authentic Harry Winston pieces to family gatherings and seeing if anyone noticed. They never did. Rachel once spent 20 minutes showing off her expensive $200 Michael Kors watch. I was wearing a vintage Patek Philippe that cost more than her car. The real challenge was managing growth. By year 5, we had offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. I spent more time on planes than in my own bed. We built a reputation for discretion. It turns out that a lot of wealthy people want their jewels authenticated without the rest of the world knowing. The money was incredible. We had to hire a huge team of financial advisors. Still, I maintained a relatively modest lifestyle. I bought a nice, but not flashy house in a good neighborhood. I drove a high-end, but not obvious car. The only place I truly splurged was my home office, advanced authentication equipment, the best security system money can buy, a custom-built vault that would make Fort Knox envious. The irony? They thought I was being frugal by helping them. Mom would say things like, "It's so sweet of Sarah to help out. She must be eating nothing but ramen to manage it." Meanwhile, I'd just authenticated a collection that earned me a commission greater than their mortgage. You know what's strange about success? The more you have, the harder it is to explain to others who have always seen you as inferior. It's like explaining color to someone who has only seen black and white. They just don't have the context. But by this stage, my company was thriving. We had the high-end jewelry authentication industry in the Midwest cornered, and our reputation was solid gold, pun intended. But every Sunday, I'd go to my parents' house for dinner, playing Sarah, the modest antique shop worker. The cognitive dissonance was becoming ridiculous. I'd spend my mornings on conference calls with Dubai collectors, my afternoons authenticating million-dollar pieces, and my evenings at my parents' house in carefully chosen normal clothes, eating Mom's overcooked pot roast while Rachel dominated the conversation with stories about her latest marketing triumph, usually something about bringing her boss's coffee without spilling it. The breaking point one Sunday is etched in my mind. I had just closed a massive deal, authenticating a missing Cartier piece that had been sitting in someone's safe deposit box for 40 years. The commission alone? 7 figures. I drove straight from the meeting to my parents' place, still euphoric from the successful authentication. Mom, "Sarah, honey, is everything okay? Your clothes are looking a bit worn." Me, "Oh, you know, trying to save money." I was wearing a $3,000 cashmere sweater I'd purposefully chosen for its subtle look. Rachel, "Well, if you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with old jewelry." Dad, "Rachel, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you." I almost choked on my pot roast, trying not to laugh. Around this time, the anonymous transfers to my parents began. Aunt Kelly told me they were struggling to pay Rachel's student loans and medical bills. Mom casually mentioned they might have to sell the house. I couldn't let that happen. Despite everything, it was still the home I grew up in. So, I started an anonymous monthly transfer of $5,000 to their account. When asked, I said I was contributing $1,000 by living on rice and beans. They assumed the rest came from Aunt Kelly or another family member. Rachel, of course, took credit for inspiring family members to help. The money helped, but it also had unexpected consequences. My parents started treating me with a strange mix of pity and patronizing pride, as if I were some noble poverty, case sacrificing everything to support the family. Meanwhile, Rachel's spending became more extravagant. She'd show up to dinner with new, expensive bags, claiming they were outlet finds. They weren't. I can spot a real Gucci from 20 paces. She started taking extravagant vacations and bragging on Instagram about her blessed life. I'm pretty sure she used my support money for shopping sprees. But I stayed silent. The irony was just too delicious. Then came the MBA drama. Rachel announced she wanted to go back to school for her MBA, another private university, of course. Only the best for the golden child. Mom called me in tears, explaining how they couldn't afford it. Me. Maybe Rachel could look at state schools? They have good programs, too. Mom. Oh, honey, you don't understand. Your sister needs to maintain certain standards. But speaking of helping, could you increase your monthly contribution for a few years? I increased it to $7,000 a month. My accounts didn't even notice. But watching them praise Rachel for taking initiative with her education, while assuming I was living on ramen to help out, that stung a little. The real kicker? I was giving a guest lecture at the exact same business school Rachel wanted to attend. My family had no idea. The dean personally invited me to speak on luxury goods authentication and business growth. I had to invent an excuse why I couldn't make Sunday dinner that week. My own success started to feel like a separate life, like I was some kind of corporate superhero with a hidden identity. By day, I was running a multi-million-dollar authentication business. By night, well, on Sunday evenings, I was just Sarah, the disappointing daughter who worked at an antique shop. The weight of the lie was getting heavier. Rachel made snide comments about my career multiple times. Each time, Mom apologized to her friends for my modest lifestyle. Each time, Dad suggested I get a real job. I think I always knew it would end spectacularly. I just didn't expect it to implode so perfectly on Thanksgiving. It started 2 weeks before the holiday. Mom called, weeping about her back pain. She'd been diagnosed with a herniated disc, and the idea of cooking Thanksgiving dinner for 20 guests overwhelmed her. Now, I'd like to tell you I offered to help purely out of goodwill, but honestly, I was tired of pretending her dried turkey was appetizing. Me. Why don't I handle the food this year? I can have it catered. Mom. Oh, honey, we can't afford a caterer. Me. Don't worry about the cost. I've been saving up. Mom, concerned. You're not taking out a loan, are you? I arranged everything with a high-end catering firm I use for business events. They do amazing work, the kind of food that makes you wonder why you ever bothered to cook yourself. It cost more than my parents thought I earned in 2 months, but whatever. Thanksgiving morning dawned, and I was feeling pretty good. I had my laptop with me because I needed to monitor a major online auction in Hong Kong. This magnificent Art Nouveau necklace was up for sale, and I had a client interested in authentication if they won the bid. Lunch arrived on time, and everything was perfectly set up. Rachel, of course, had to comment. Rachel, store-bought stuffing, really, Sarah? Mom's is so much better. This from the girl who once set off the smoke alarm making toast. Mom was apologizing to everyone for not cooking herself, but you could tell they were enjoying the meal. Rachel shut up after tasting the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts, which, by the way, cost more per plate than her weekly grocery budget. I excused myself after dinner and before dessert to check my laptop. The auction was getting exciting, and I needed to be ready if my client won. I set up in my old bedroom, which Mom had kept exactly the same since high school. Meanwhile, Rachel's room had been renovated 3 times. That's when everything went wrong. I'd left my authentication software running with multiple tabs open showing various accounts and current contracts. Rachel walked in without knocking, some things never change, to borrow my phone charger. She saw my laptop screen and realized this was her chance to finally expose how pathetic her older sister was. Rachel, smirking, "Let's show everyone what Sarah's really been up to." Before I could stop her, she grabbed my laptop and marched into the dining room. The big reveal picture this 20 people, including aunts, uncles, cousins, and my parents, stuffed with gourmet turkey and half-drunk on pricey wine they thought was from Trader Joe's. Rachel, triumphant. "Time to see what kind of important work Sarah's doing on Thanksgiving." She flipped the laptop around, apparently intending to shame me with whatever minor antique transactions she assumed I was working on. The room went completely silent. You could hear the fancy clock I got Mom for Christmas, which she thought was a replica, ticking silently. My screen displayed current account balance, $12,400,000 pending authentication contract, $485,000 recent transaction, $1,200,000 Hong Kong auction. Company's quarterly profit report, $4,200,000. Rachel's face cycled through 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. The final one landed somewhere between shock and nausea. She actually swayed slightly on her feet, Rachel whispering, This can't be right." Mom. "Rachel, honey, what is it?" Rachel, voice cracking. She's rich. Sarah's rich. Chaos." If it was possible, the silence deepened even further. Then, Mom started giggling, like really laughing. "Don't be silly. Sarah works at that little antique shop." I stood up, carefully straightening my basic cashmere sweater, which cost more than their monthly mortgage. Me. "Yes, actually, Mom. I own one of the largest jewelry authentication companies in the country. For years, those antique shop comments, I authenticate pieces worth millions. That little business you never asked about? It has offices in 3 cities. Dad choked on his wine. Aunt Kelly dropped her fork. My uncle started coughing terribly. Then Mom's laughter turned into something else. Her face went red, then purple. She stood up so quickly her chair tumbled over. Mom screaming, "You have millions and you let us struggle." Me. "Struggle? I send you $7,000 every month." Mom. "While sitting on millions, your sister has student loans." So there it was. Not congratulations. Not, "Wow, we're so proud." Just outrage that I hadn't given them more money. Rachel started to cry. Shocking, I know, sobbing about how she deserved to know and how I had betrayed the family. Dad joined in. "Dad, how could you be so selfish? We're your parents. We raised you." That's when I lost it. Years of being ignored, years of dismissal, years of being treated as a family disappointment. Everything poured out. Me. Raised me? You shipped me off to Grandma's every time I sneezed. You missed every achievement, every award, every milestone because Rachel might feel left out. You never saved a penny for my college but took out loans for her private school. And now you're mad that I built something for myself. The next 5 minutes were chaos. Mom screamed about family obligations. Dad yelled about ungrateful children. Rachel alternated between sobbing and demanding to know just how much money I had. Meanwhile, the fancy catering team tried to serve dessert, looking extremely uncomfortable. I grabbed my laptop, picked up my Hermes bag, which Mom had once admired as a nice replica, and walked out. Behind me, I could hear Mom discussing how to spend my money, something about Rachel's MBA and a new car. As I drove home in my sensible car, a limited edition BMW, my phone started lighting up with texts. The family group chat exploded. Rachel started posting on Facebook about hidden family wealth and selfish siblings. The aftermath, the days after Thanksgiving were like watching a hurricane hit in slow motion, except the hurricane was my family and the debris was my sanity. Let's start with the texts. Within an hour of leaving dinner, my phone had 47 missed calls and over 200 messages. Moms followed this fascinating progression. 7:42 p.m. How dare you walk out on family? 8:15 p.m. We need to talk about this. Like adults. 9:03 p.m. Your sister deserves a share of your success. 10:30 p.m. I've already called a realtor about houses in better neighborhoods. 11:45 p.m. Why aren't you answering? This is your mother. Rachel, on the other hand, fully embraced social media. She wrote a massive rant on Facebook about how her millionaire sister had been hoarding wealth while watching her beloved family struggle. The comment section was insane. Distant cousins and former high school classmates I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had strong opinions about my moral character. But here's the part that really got me. Rachel actually posted, "All those years of me trying to help Sarah's career, giving her advice about moving up from that little antique shop, and she was secretly wealthy. The betrayal hurt so much." I nearly threw my phone across the room. The only career advice she ever gave me was to try selling jewelry on Etsy. If you're unfamiliar with the term, flying monkeys is when toxic family members send others to guilt trip you. Aunt Susan, whom I saw maybe once every 3 years, called to tell me family is everything. Uncle Bob, who I'm pretty sure still thinks I'm 12, emailed me a lengthy lecture on the importance of sharing wealth. Even my third cousin's wife's sister, how did she get my number, felt compelled to offer her thoughts on family obligation. But the real fun started when they showed up at my office. I walked in on Monday morning to find Mom, Dad, and Rachel sitting in our reception area. They told Jenny, my receptionist, they had an appointment for authenticating services. Rachel clutched her Michael Kors bag like it was actually worth something. The conversation went about as well as you'd expect. Mom, we've discussed it as a family. Me, a family discussion without. The family member you're discussing? Mom, ignoring me. And we think it's only fair that you set up trust funds for everyone. Rachel, I need at least $2 million to start my new life properly. Dad, and your mother and I would like to retire. We're thinking a beach house in Florida. Me, did you miss the part where I've been sending you $7,000 monthly? Rachel, that's nothing compared to what you have. You owe us. Me, thinking, I owe you for what, exactly? The years of being ignored, the missed graduations, the constant comparisons. Mom, don't be dramatic, Sarah. We gave you everything. Me, no, I gave myself everything, and you know what? I'm done. Right there, in my own office lobby, I pulled out my phone and canceled the monthly transfers to their account. Mom gasped as if I'd slapped her. Rachel started her fake crying performance, but quickly stopped when she saw it wasn't working. Then things got ugly. They refused to leave. I had to call security. Seeing my 60-year-old mother being dragged out, while yelling about ungrateful children, was surreal. Jenny asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, but I did have their names placed on the building's Do Not Admit list. The harassment lasted for weeks. New phone numbers, fake email addresses, even trying to contact me through my company's customer service. I finally had to issue a formal legal notice threatening harassment charges. Mom then played her final card. She called Grandma Marie. But here's the thing about Grandma Marie. She's wiser than all of them put together. Her response? Good for Sarah. About time someone in this family succeeded on their own terms. Mom, didn't speak to her for 2 months after that. It's been 6 months since Thanksgiving. I moved to a new home with better security. I changed all my numbers. The company? We're doing better than ever. It turns out my family drama actually attracted several high-profile clients who respected my discretion in the situation. Rachel continues to post passive-aggressive updates about toxic wealth and family betrayal. From what I hear, she's starting her own jewelry authentication business. Good luck with that. Mom and Dad finally stopped trying to contact me when my lawyer sent them an official letter outlining how harassment charges would affect their lives. They're now telling everyone they never wanted my money anyway, and that they're praying for my salvation. The best part? For the first time in my life, I feel free. No more Sunday dinners full of backhanded insults. No more downplaying my accomplishments to spare their feelings. No more financing the Rachel show. My therapist thinks I'm finally setting healthy boundaries. I say I'm finally living authentically. So that's my story, Reddit. Thanks for letting me share it. Special thanks to the catering firm who sent me a Christmas letter saying the Thanksgiving meal was the highlight of their year. Edit. Responses to common questions. Yes, I'm still in therapy. No, I don't regret cutting them off. Yes, Grandma. Marie is doing great. She's visiting next month to help me catalog a new collection. One last thing to Rachel. I know you're probably reading this. That Cartier bracelet you're wearing in your most recent Instagram post? Definitely a fake. Just saying.